Hi, I've got some news for you today. You are not broken. Nothing about you is broken. I know it might feel that way sometimes. Maybe some of the systems we've created are broken. Maybe some of the expectations that we've had or inherited are broken. Maybe some of what we've been taught about what it means to be a successful human being deserves another look. But you right there, you beautiful soul, you are not broken. We haven't met before. If we haven't met before, I'm Alice. I spent more than 33 years working one-on-one with thousands of people through body work. And if there's one thing those years have taught me, it's that we humans can become incredibly hard on ourselves. So we think we should be doing better, feeling better, handling things better, healing faster. We compare ourselves to everybody else. We've been trained that way, really. And then when our very human selves have a very human response to life, we decide there must be something wrong with us. But I want to ask you something. Who decided what a perfectly functioning human being is supposed to look like? Because apparently this person wakes up rested, drinks enough water, never overthinks, has perfectly regulated emotion, has healthy boundaries, gets 10,000 steps and still remembers to take their vitamins. I don't know this person. I don't know if you do, but I don't know this person. And yet somehow we've made them the standard. I think many of us learned very early how to measure ourselves. Grades, achievements, behavior, appearance, success, productivity, how much we could handle. How much we could handle, how much we could accomplish, how little help we needed. And somewhere along the way, performance became confused with worth. That's it. Performance became confused with worth. So when we couldn't keep up, we didn't always question the expectations, we questioned ourselves. Why can't I handle this? Why am I so anxious? Why am I exhausted? Why can't I just get myself together? And perhaps the most painful one is, what's wrong with me? But what if that's the wrong question? What if you're not broken? What if you're just responding? Responding to stress, responding to pressure, responding to loss, responding to taking years of taking care of everyone else, responding to a life that perhaps hasn't left very much room for you. There's a difference between being broken and being human. And I've seen that difference up close for 33 years. People come into my room and for perhaps the first time all day, there's nothing for them to do, nothing to accomplish, nobody to take care of. They simply get on the table and stop. At least that's what I hope they do. A lot don't. And something pretty awesome happens. I'll begin working on an area and someone will say, "Oh, I didn't even know I was sore there." That is so common. I can't even begin. That is so sore there. Or, "Wow, I had no idea I was so tight." I've heard that 1,000 or more times, thousands of times. And I think about what they're saying. Something was happening inside their body and they didn't know it. They weren't broken. They weren't disconnected. They've been busy living, working. Well, let me get back to the disconnected part in a minute. Taking care of things, taking care of people, and suddenly there was enough quiet to notice themselves, their bodies, what was happening. They got a chance to breathe. The soreness didn't suddenly appear because they got on the table. The awareness did. And that's always the best part, because it makes me wonder, what else don't we notice about ourselves? Not because we're doing something wrong, but because life can become so loud. We just don't take the time. That eventually we have trouble hearing what's happening inside us. Sometimes the body doesn't need to communicate louder. Sometimes we need to become quieter so we can hear what's been there all along. And maybe that applies to more than our bodies. Maybe we're tired, maybe we're lonely, maybe we're overwhelmed, maybe we're angry. Maybe something we've been saying yes to really needs a no. Maybe we've been trying so hard that the person everyone else needs, as the person that we haven't stopped to ask, who am I underneath all of this? And this is where I think we get ourselves into trouble, because when we finally notice something uncomfortable, we immediately want to fix it. Anxiety, fix it. Tired, push through. Sad, cheer up. Overwhelmed, get organized. We've gotten very good at overriding ourselves. And with this overriding, that's where we disconnect from ourselves. That's where the disconnection comes in, when we override these things that are happening to us or what we're feeling. And sometimes, of course, we need to keep going. Life is life. I'm not suggesting we abandon our responsibilities every time we have a feeling. We know that nothing would ever get done if that happened. So I'm suggesting something much simpler. Maybe we stop pretending we didn't receive the single. Maybe instead of immediately saying, how do I make this go away? We occasionally ask, what is this asking me to notice? Because listening to the body doesn't mean every sensation has some profound hidden meaning. Sometimes a tight shoulder is just a tight shoulder. We did gardening this weekend, and I overdid it. Simple. But listening means we stop treating every uncomfortable part of ourselves as an inconvenience to overcome. We are not an inconvenience. We have to remember that, right? And maybe that's where wholeness begins, not when we finally become the perfectly healed, completely calm, endlessly productive person we're trying so hard to become, but when we begin allowing ourselves to be human. Simply human. Strong and vulnerable, certain and uncertain, joyful and sad, productive and tired, knowing and not knowing, all of it. Maybe wholeness begins when we stop trying to become someone else and start listening to the person who's already here. So before we finish, I'm not going to give you another technique. I'm not going to ask you to fix anything. I'm not even going to have you take a deep breath, but maybe we should, because that always feels good. You can take a deep breath if you want. I know, shocking. Instead, just for a moment, don't ask anything of yourself. Don't try to feel better. Don't try to become more peaceful. Don't try to figure anything out. Instead, let's come out of our heads for just a minute and step down into our bodies. Just feel. Feel where your body's making contact with whatever's underneath you, the chair, the floor, the feet inside your shoes if you're wearing them. Notice the temperature of the air against your skin. Listen to the sounds around you. Maybe notice where you're holding some tension. Without asking it to go anywhere, just notice. Now feel your body from the inside. Not what you think about your body, but what does it actually feel like to be in there? What like, does your stomach, is it a little bit tight? What things like that? What is going on in there? You don't have to name anything. You don't have to understand a thing. And you certainly don't have to fix anything. Just feel. We're in our heads so much of our lives, just thinking, planning, remembering, worrying, all the things. figuring out what comes next. And meanwhile, there's this whole other part of us quietly having an experience. That's where we've disconnected, right? Our body, our senses, our feelings, us. So when we take this moment to come back to ourselves, it doesn't require some huge, profound spiritual experience. Sometimes we just need to simply come back to our bodies. Feel our feet on the ground or wherever they're at, hear what's around us, notice what's happening on the inside, and be here long enough to remember, oh, here I am. I'm right here, right now. Maybe that's where reconnection begins. I tend to think it is. So, not by figuring ourselves out, but by becoming present enough to feel ourselves. And the more we practice being here now, inside our bodies, not out there, not up here only, the more we may begin to hear what's been there all along. So just for today, remember, you're not broken. You're a beautiful soul having a very human experience. Okay. Thank you for taking the time for being here today. I hope you stay around so we can slow down together. May your day be a little brighter and a little lighter. See you next time. Bye.